Hi guys, Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to be showing you a cute pair of earrings. So to start, what you're going to need to do is you're going to mix up around 10 parts white to 1 part ecru. These are both Polymer colours, and this is the colour you should end up with. Now again, you could just mix a randomly small amount of ecru into some white and just end up with something that looks like off-white. That's essentially all we're trying to do. You don't have to have an exact colour recipe on that. Then you're going to take that, and I'm just burnishing it between 2 pieces of paper just to get it nice and smooth. Then bring over a small tile that can easily fit into your oven. Lift up the bottom piece of the paper and then burnish that clay onto a tile. Now you need to press pretty hard because this needs to be stuck onto this tile well, and it is a glazed ceramic tile. Okay, then peel that off, and then you're going to need 2 cutters that are very close to the same size. These are the cutters that I am using, and I think, if I am correct, let me just double check here. Yes, they are the 2 smallest cutters in my large arch cutter set. And so you're going to take the smallest one first, cut into your clay, like so. And then I'm going to need to have my head over the top, but you need to have this rest right in the middle. Here we go. And then press down firmly on that as well, and lift up. Okay, and now if you burnish this properly, the clay should not lift up with your cutter and it should stick to the tile. That is the goal. Okay, then grab something to just pick out that middle. There we go. And there we go. Now we've got a nice little veil. Oh, not veil, border is what I'm trying to say. Now I'm just going to go around these edges, and I'm just going to quickly clean up any areas that I am not happy with, just tidy wise. You don't want to fuss with it too much, just enough that it's nice and tidy. And then you want to pop that into the oven for at least 15 minutes at Polymer's recommended temperature, or you can set it with a heat gun, either way works. Basically all you want to do is to just have it hard enough that it's going to keep its shape. Now I set that with the heat gun during that last cut, and so now I've just popped it off to the side, and I'm going to roll out another piece of this clay. Same setting. Now, just give me 1 second here. There we go. Now, I do need to talk over something. This clay is about 1 millimeter thick, which is the 3rd setting of my pasta machine. You want to keep all the layers in this tutorial 1 millimeter thick. Don't go any thinner, don't go any thicker. So that's the measurements for this tutorial. Now I'm just busy taking that same off-white colour, and I'm just rolling it through the machine a few times, like so. Grab a piece of paper again, and another piece, and just burnish that firmly, because you want to get rid of any fingerprints or roller marks. Okay. Pop that to the side. And we're going to now pick this up off of our tile. Like so. Be careful, because it basically has the same strength as a potato chip, so it's very delicate. And then you can use a little bit of liquid clay if you want, but I prefer not to, especially since we're going to be putting little mosaic tiles on. So I just press that down firmly, so. Then I'll take the cutter again, press down firmly, and then I'll remove the clay from the outside before lifting the cutter. And then, because it's on a piece of paper, it will stick inside the cutter, so use that border that we've created just to press down while you're lifting up the cutter so that it doesn't stick. Go. Now you're going to need to do a little bit of tidying up, and all you'll do is you'll just take your craft knife and just trim around these edges. And now what I'm showing here basically is how you would create a bezel. So if you just wanted a bezel for something, like to put liquid clay or resin in, this is the way to do it essentially. So if you wanted to stop after I finish tidying up the bezel and do your own thing, feel free to do that. Or you can continue following the tutorial, it's completely up to you. But for those of you that are just looking for a way to create a bezel, this is how you do it. You could do it in any colour you want, any shape you want, so long as you have cutters that are nice and similar in size. And yeah, that's how you would create a bezel. So there we go. Now I'm just going to quickly check whether the sides are nice and smooth. And so I'm just going to use my cutter actually to just smooth those sides. So I'm just going to fuss with it a little bit more. Okay, and there we go. So now you go pop that to the side, leave it on the piece of paper. Unless you're going to be doing the, excuse me, let me start that again. Leave it on the paper if you're going to be doing the next step immediately. If you're going to go off, take a break, take it off the paper because it will leach it. But if you're doing all these steps immediately after each other, you can leave it on the piece of paper while you're doing this next step. So now I've got 3 different colours here. You can choose any colour you want. You'll see what these colours are in the supplies. I do know this is burnt sienna, ecru, this is jungle green, it's the red one that I'm a little iffy on. Let's see, Eleazar crimson, that's what it's called. And those are just the colours that I'm going with. So now your first step is, if you don't have a heat gun, you want to put this on a tile that will easily fit into your oven. However, if you do have a heat gun, just pop it onto your normal work tile. Take a piece of printing paper, in both cases, burnish it down thoroughly. It needs to be stuck down to a ceramic or glass tile so that the clay sticks. Because this next step we're going to be using teeny tiny little cutters, and the clay very easily sticks inside those cutters. So the better it is stuck down onto the tile, the easier your life's going to be. Okay. So there's a little air bubble there that I do need to get out. There we go. Alright, now we're ready to start. Now let me just bring over the first earring, which I have already done. This is essentially what we are working towards, as you can see. So now what I would recommend doing is just cut out a random bunch of circles, plan out your first earring, put it all in, and then for the second earring count out exactly how many of each size you need so that you don't waste any. And that is what I am going to do. So let's do the red first. We're going to need 2 of my largest micro circles. So 2 of those. Then for the next size down we need 3. And this is essentially what you would do with all of them. Then for the next size down we need, let's see, 3 again. Okay, and then finally for the last size we need 4. Okay, now I'm going to do the same with the other colours, and then I'll show you what to do next. Okay, and there we go. Now if it was your first earring, you would just cut out a random amount of each one. Okay, so now to get this up, you want to start on one corner and you want to gently stretch and pull up, like so. And repeat that with all of them. And now if anything lifts up with the clay, you're going to need to lay it back down somewhere else, smooth it down and cut out whichever one was lifted up. I want to see if that will happen with any of these. Hopefully not. If we burnish it down properly with each one, it shouldn't. There we go. But if it does, so let's say one of these lifted up, you would just put it down again, use your piece of paper to burnish it, and then let's say this was the one that you lifted up, and then you could make another one very quickly. So anyway, I've done these. So now if you don't have a heat gun, you would put these into the oven for about 15 minutes at pretty much recommended temperature. If you have a heat gun, again, just use the heat gun to set them so that they're hard and easy to use, and then we can move on to applying them to our earring. Okay, there we go, all set up. So now we're going to use a tweezer for the next step, just because it's easier to pick things up like that. And then I've got this earring next to this one so that I can mirror it, or not mirror it, but match it exactly. You can mirror it if you want to, but that would take more time, and I don't think it's completely necessary with a mosaic. So I'm just going to take my pieces. These large ones are a little hard to work with. You just want to place it down. And generally I will just start from one side and I will work. So know that that one needs to go there as well. Now you don't have to necessarily make the mosaic exactly the same as your other earring. You could make the mosaic completely random if you wanted to. That is really completely up to you, but I did want the mosaic to be the same as this earring, so that is why I have cut out the exact number of pieces, and so that I can mirror it, or not mirror it, match it exactly, at least hopefully as exactly as I can. So anyway, you would keep putting those down the same as the other one, or in a completely new pattern if you wanted to, and then when that is done I'll show you the next step. Okay, and there we go, so we have our 2 earrings. So now this will go into the oven for a full hour at pretty much recommended temperature, and then when it is out of the oven we are going to backfill it, so that we're going to backfill it basically with this colour, so that we can get the holes all filled in. Then we're going to sand it so it's nice and flat, so it's completely flat but you still have that nice mosaic effect. So with that in mind, you don't have to worry about accidentally poking the clay at the back. So that will go into the oven on that piece of paper, but we also need, we also want 2 little circle pieces. So I've got a piece of clay here, the same colour. Just go quickly burnish that. Okay. And then take a nail brush, and I want you to quite heavily texture that. Creates a really nice texture. And then just cut out 2 pieces, and now it might stick in there. And if it does, I'm just going to very carefully poke it out. Press it back down. You can even use this to just gently retexture it. There we go, that will go with those 2. And I will cut out another one. Okay, and just handle it carefully because you don't want fingerprints and things like that. There you go, save that for filling in the pieces later on. There we go, we have our 2 little pieces that can be added on, which I think look quite nice. Just retexturing that spot where our fingerprint was. Okay, so then you go pop those into the oven for a full hour at pretty much recommended temperature, and then when we're done we're going to be doing the back filling. Okay, so here they are out of the oven. So now we're ready to do the back filling. So these I'm going to put to the side, we do not need them right now, they're essentially finished for the most part. And all we're going to do, these have to be cool before we move on to the next step. So just let them cool when they come out the oven. Then take your colour that you're going to be backfilling with. You could even backfill with a different colour if you wanted to, because you have a border around it. It could look quite interesting. but I'm not going to do that. Just going to squish that in like so. And then you're just going to warm it up. It's very important that you warm it up in your hands to make it nice and soft before smushing it in, because it just goes in a lot easier if you do that. And just work that over the surface. And everything I'm doing for this one you would repeat with the other earring. Keep in mind you do not have to make earrings, you could also make pendants, you could make coasters, there's a bunch of different projects you could make. So I'm just smoothing that all over until I fill in the whole piece. Okay. Then take a piece of paper and we're just going to burnish this down. Like so. Okay. And then I'm just going to scrape over the surface. And I'm using a dull blade because I don't want to cut into the baked clay. I just want to get rid of as much of the surface as I can. And because they were all 1mm thick, it should be pretty easy to get rid of a lot of this excess clay. So you can see here, we are going to have to do a little bit of sanding later on, but that's not too hard to do. So basically that is essentially what it's going to look like until we pop it into the oven. I'm just busy smoothing out now because we had a few gouges, which I don't want. I also want to check for air bubbles, things like that. But they're basically, that is what we're looking at. I don't really want to fuss with that anymore. I'm going to pop that into the oven like that. And I'm going to finish this one off as well. Then you would bake those two for a full hour again. Or at least 40 minutes, really. And then when that's done, we're going to be doing a bit of sanding just to clean this up and make it look perfect. Okay, and here they are out of the oven. So now we need to sand them. So I'm going to start with this one. I'm just going to pop it into this bowl of water that I have over here so it cools. And I'm going to be starting off with a 180 grit, which is very coarse. I'm going to go up to a 400 and then up to a 1200. And then after that we're going to be using some polishing papers. So just let your piece cool at least a little bit before moving on. And then you're just going to take that and you're just going to start sanding like so. Slowly and methodically. And doing this by sink is generally easier as well. And now this sanding, until we move on to polishing papers, is just for the front of your piece. You do not do this on the sides or on the back. Okay, and you'll start to see that it will start to show up some of those circles, like you can see there, that one's coming up quite nicely. And so you'll just aggressively sand it with this grit until you're happy that the circles are nice and clear. Once they're nice and clear, then you can start moving up through the grits, and then we can move on to polishing papers. And you'll repeat this process with the other earring. So let me show you this quickly. So there you can see that we're starting to get some of those circles showing up. Okay, so now that I've finished sanding them, we can move on to the polishing papers. Now I want to show you a quick trick that I decided to use. You can take some double-sided tape and an acrylic block and actually stick your pieces backside down onto the acrylic block and sand them that way. It makes it a lot easier to hold, and also you will then get a perfectly flat piece, rather than if you're holding it with your hands. You're going to find that it starts to sand away on the outside and will slowly get sanded away on the inside, but then your piece isn't going to be flat. If you're doing it this way, you'll end up with a nice flat piece. And you can do both of them, as you can see. So now I'm going to bring over the polishing papers, and I'm going to start with the 400 grit. And you can see here, it's much easier to hold, it's not so much of a strain on your hand, and because it's a nice thick acrylic block, you're not going to be sanding off your fingers by accident. which is something that I tend to do quite a bit. Well, not sand them off completely, but you know what I mean. You'll end up hurting them. So I'm just going to sand from the 400, and then I'll flip over and sand this one as well. And then this goes to a 600, and so on and so forth until we basically reach an 8,000, and that will give us a nice polished look. So there we go, that's the first grip. Then we move on to the next one. Okay, and there we go. So now when you want to lift these off, you can generally just use either a tissue blade to help lift it off. You could even pop it into the oven to kind of melt the tape. There we go, that should get it off. And then just peel that off. It can be quite messy, so if you're okay to do it by the sanding by hand, then well, generally that is the easiest thing to do if you want to avoid having to get this off. But as you can see, it doesn't take that much to get it off. It's just a little bit of a slip. Okay, and just repeat with the other one. Okay, so now the next step is optional. You do not have to do this, but I do like to do it just because it brings out some of the colour. So I'm just going to take a little bit of Renaissance wax, and I'm just going to smooth that over the surface. We don't need too much. And I'm just doing it on the front. You don't have to do it on the back or on the other small rounded pieces. That's unnecessary. This you don't even need to do either. It just I find that it brings out the colour a little bit more. And now I'm going to take the back of my 8000 polishing paper. You can take any rag you happen to have, and I'm just going to burnish it. I don't want to use a buffing wheel because I'll get too shiny a finish. I'm just going to buff by hand. Okay. And it'll give a semi-shiny finish. Okay. And repeat with this one. There we go. So now it has a light shine to it. So then you're going to take a pin drill, and you're just going to find the top of your piece. Now I like to just make a little mark hole, like so, and drill. So it's quick and easy as that. Just go back through to make sure that's nice and clean. There we go. Then with these two, you're just going to take one end and make a little hole. Get a drill. Just quickly go back through the back to clean that hole up. Okay. And then drill another one at the top. Like so. And then you'll repeat with the other little round circle piece and the other little mosaic piece. Okay. So you're going to need a nice large jump ring now. Slide that through, link up your little round piece, close that up. Okay, then I'm going to bring over a smaller jump ring, just slightly smaller anyway. Just slip that through, trying to find the hole there. And then that's basically all you have to do. I've done the same with the other one over here, as you can see. And yeah, that's basically everything you have to do. There's not a lot else you could do. Now, obviously you could put a layer of resin over the top of the mosaic if you wanted to. I don't really want to. I want to keep it kind of organic looking. You could also play around with different colours. There's a lot of different colours you could do. I went with this kind of muted faux terrazzo colour palette that you see in a lot of the modern earrings, because I wanted to have a little play on it. Usually you kind of chop up random shapes in this sort of colour palette and put it onto a off-white or white background, but I wanted to play around with a mosaic look. You could play around with a lot of different colour palettes. Of course, you don't even have to do the mosaic. You could just stop at the bezel and make something completely different if you wanted to. There's a lot of different techniques in this tutorial that you could play around with. So if you would like to support this channel so that I can continue making videos like this one, please do consider becoming a patron. I have a link to that site in the description below the video. It would be extremely helpful to me and I would really appreciate it. Also, if you have questions or would just like to tell me what you thought of the video, please do include that in the comments below and I will have a look at it. If it's a question, I will try to answer it as soon as I can. And as always, I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.